Today we are going to discuss the Newton's law of motion. Basically, there are three Newton's law of motion. First law, second law, and third law. First of all, we are going to start the first law. First law that basically tells about the quality of the force. What does it mean? For example, like if the body is in motion, the external force is applied on it, the body will become in rest. And if a body is in rest, the external force is applied on it and the body will convert into motion, means will start moving. So that is what first law is saying, that the rest and motion both remain same. They both remain same until the external force is act on it, and until the external force act on it. Like if a body is in rest, if there is a body that is in rest, so if there is no external force that is applied on that body, the body will remain in rest. But if the external force is applied on that rest body, the body will convert into motion. As if a body is in motion, so until the external force is not applied on it, it will remain in motion. For example, if a car is moving, if there is a car that is moving, and it will continuously move until the external force is applied on it. As the external force is applied on it, it will stop moving, so it means it will become in rest. So that is what first law is saying, that the rest and motion will remain same until the external force is applied on it. As we know, in first law, the velocity is constant. Velocity is constant. Like if the body is moving, so it will be continuously moving until the external force is applied on it. If a body, it will remain in rest until the external force is applied on it. So when the velocity is constant, the acceleration will become 0. Now there are some factors, like the factors of the first law. Let's see what are the factors of first law. The factors, first factor is the air pressure. Second factor of the first law will be the frictional force, and the third can be the gravitational force. That are basically, these are the factors of the first law. One important thing, that first law is also known as the law of inertia. What does mean by law of inertia? What does this word means? Inertia. Inertia is basically a property of matter. Say that it is a property of matter due to which it can attract and repel another charge. Like due to which it can repel or attract another charge. Okay, like it depends on the mass. It is we can say it is property of matter due to which it can repel or attract another charges. Like basically, as I said, that it inertia depends on mass. So if there will be a greater mass, so the inertia will be greater as well. Greater inertia. We can say that the inertia is directly proportional to the mass. Like if the mass is greater, the inertia will be greater. What does it mean? That if the body has a greater mass, so we have to apply a more external force on it, like greater inertia. If there is a less mass, so the less inertia would be there. That is basically, we can also write that inertia is directly proportional to the mass, or we can say inertia is depend on the mass. So that was all about the first law, that the rest and motion remain same until the external force is applied on it. Now we'll talk about the second law of motion. The second law of motion is basically saying that it is basically telling about the quantity of force, and what it is exactly saying, that acceleration is directly proportional to the force, and the acceleration is inversely proportional to the mass. What the second law of motion is saying, that the acceleration is directly proportional to the force and acceleration is inversely proportional to the mass. Like if we say it is the first equation and this is the second equation, when we combine these both equations, acceleration is directly proportional to the force upon mass, and we know when we remove that directly proportional or the inversely proportional sign, we add the constant, and the constant would be k. So acceleration will be equal to kf upon m. Now k, the constant, is basically equal to 1. So acceleration is equal to force upon m. If we want to find a force, it will be, m is dividing here, it will be multiplying. So that is basically what Newton's law, the law of motion, is saying, that the force is equal to the mass into acceleration. That is the formula of the force. Now if we want to find the unit, force is equal to, what is the unit of mass? That is kg. And what is the unit of acceleration? That is meter per second square. So force is basically equal to the kg meter per second square. Now we know that 1 Newton is equal to 1 kg into 1 meter per second square. That is means 1 Newton is equal to 1 into 1 will be 1 kg meter per second square. So 1 is like, we can write or not, doesn't matter. So what does it mean? That Newton is basically equal to the kg meter per second square. So instead of this, can we write here that force is equal to the Newton? So the unit of force, how it forms, that it is Newton. The unit of force is Newton. So here the force is a vector quantity. Here what we found, we have to, means in second law it is telling about the quantity of force, that it is a vector quantity, as well as the SI unit of force is Newton, and the formula of force is F is equal to ma. That was all about the second law of motion. Now if we talk about the third law of motion. Third law of motion, what it is saying? It is telling that every action has an equal and the opposite reaction. What does it mean? Means like, it is saying that every action, the action has an equal and the opposite reaction. Now, what happens when two objects interact with each other? Like when you place an object, like it is a ball, when you place an object on the table, the object exerts a force on the table, and the subject, that is a table, will exert an upward force. It is exerting a force that is downward. The object is exerting a force on the table, and the table is oppositely exerting a force upward force on that object. So there will be two forces that result from this interaction. Like a first force, that will be a force on the table. Second force, that will be a force on object. Two forces would be there. The magnitude of these two forces are same, but the direction are opposite. Like first, the force on table is downward and the force on object is upward, so it has opposite direction, but the magnitude is same. So there are two forces. These two forces are known as action and reaction force. Action and reaction force. Which one is action force and which one is reaction force? The force that is exerted on the table was an action force, and the force which is exerted on the object, that was a reaction force. So what we see here, we see that the third law of motion, that every action has an equal and the opposite reaction. Like the one force that is exerting a force on the table, object is exerting a force on the table, and table is exerting a force on the object. So that is the opposite reaction, means every action has an equal and the opposite reaction. So that was all about the third law of motion.